JT here with the Buckball Podcast. I got my special guest here, Jamison Lee, Mr. J Lee on Twitter. What's going on, man?
It's good to be on the show with you today. Good day to wake up and watch some college football. Had a good night last night. Some of you might know I coach offensive line at Kathleen High School. We had a big win last night, 54-8 over Bartow. And Florida State's got a bye this week, so they can't lose. So far it's been a good football weekend.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Opposite of last week.
Yes.
Last week was not a good football weekend, although the Bucs couldn't lose because they were on a bye. So that was a plus.
Yeah.
And this week we got Florida State on a bye. So hopefully the Bucs can go to Atlanta and do something Sunday.
Yeah, it was a rough week at work, man. Just between the Miami loss and Florida winning versus LSU, it was a tough office to be around. I had no fight in me. I couldn't say nothing I could say. They actually were the Miami Hurricanes and not the Miami Tropical Storms like they usually are. So, hey, I got to give credit where it's due.
Hey, I'll give them they are who we thought they were.
Yeah.
Let them off the hook.
There we go. All right. So, let's go ahead and get started with some news here before we dive into this Atlanta game. Elliot Marpets got his big fat deal, seventh highest paid guard in the NFL. What do you think about that?
I like to see that. I mean, he's been, a guy who's been a really solid piece for us in that interior line. Really hasn't had much injury issues since he's been drafted. Small school guy, just hard-nosed, football player. I think is really vital to our offensive line, and really a big reason why Fitzpatrick was able to do what he did early on in the season, because he was having, if you go back and watch those games, he had time to throw. He had time to sit back there and just go through his reads and make decisions, and that's something that Jameis didn't really have the past couple years. He didn't have great protection. So along with some other pieces, I feel like Marpet has been a big part of that. And it was good to go ahead and lock in one of those guys in there to somewhat of a long-term deal. And hopefully we can get, a couple more here and just solidify that offensive line for a couple of years. And I think that'll be a big key to sustaining our success offensively.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the funny thing is they moved him from the right all the way to the left. I mean, they moved him from right guard to center and out left guard. And they got him at left guard next to Donovan Smith, who's in for a payday himself. And people can say what they want about Donovan Smith. I think overall he's probably, I'd say top 15, maybe left tackle in the league. And sometimes he can play like the best left tackle in the league. And then sometimes he has games where he just looks like he has concrete shoes and he doesn't know what he's doing, which I can't say too much because, I'm not no expert or anything like that. That's just what I see on film. What do you see from Donovan Smith? You see kind of like the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, he's, like you said, in some games he can look really great. In some games you're just like, dang, who is this guy? I think it just depends on if he's facing an elite pass rusher or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's at this point, that's most tackles in the league. You get up against those guys like Khalil Mack, Von Miller, those pretty much strictly pass rush specialist guys. I mean, those guys can do it both, but those are elite, top 5 talents in the league.
True edge defenders.
So it's hard to find guys that can really block them, especially with the way the NFL is these days. I mean, you got your Jason Peters, you got your elite tackles that are guys that are going to be able to kind of be consistent. But other than that, I mean, I think Donovan Smith is still kind of developing. He's still a young guy, coming into the league. I felt like he was a developmental guy. I mean, he had a decent career at Penn State, but he wasn't like, that All-American left tackle
right
at Penn State. So,
yeah, he's going to get paid.
Right, yeah, just him continuing to develop. I feel like if he just, stays the course, he's one of the better left tackles we've had, in recent memory. I mean, Donald Penn was, pretty solid for us there for a couple of years. But before him, we really, in our down years, we really had some issues, from the years when we had Jeremy Trueblood, manning the left tackle.
Oh, yeah.
I tried to forget those times. But,
yeah, and
he's going to get paid. he's going to get paid. Winston, it remains to be seen. But, in my personal opinion, I feel like, he's going to come out and, when he had time last year, he put up big numbers. It didn't necessarily translate to wins always. But, I feel like he's going to come out and, really for him, it's a contract year. He hasn't really played up to this point. So, he's got to show out or, he's going to be moving on somewhere else. So, big payday for big years here for Donovan Smith and for, Jameis Winston trying to lock in some of the young offensive pieces there.
Yeah, not to mention Kwon Alexander, which I think Kwon Alexander gets his contract before Donovan Smith. I think honestly you're going to see a franchise tag being hit on Donovan Smith because obviously they're not going to pay both of them at the same time. I don't believe. But we got a really good cap guy. So anyways, I was on Twitter, and I was like, scrolling through whatever, and then, Pro Football Focus pops up. I'm like, yeah, let me check this out. It's basically the top offensive lines in the NFL. They have the Bucs at 28, right above the Seattle Seahawks. And I gotta think that rating has to be just from the last two games because they were playing great the first two games. The last two games going against these 3-4 defenses, that's where they struggled. But not really the left side of the interior. It's the right side. Caleb Benenoch, he's got a 45.3 grade. DeMar Dotson looked great last year, one of the best right tackles in the league last year, and he's not looking good this year. Even in those first two games, he hasn't looked great. I think that's going to be a heavy point of emphasis in the draft this year, either first round pick, second round pick, because we have plenty of depth and talent all around. I think it's time to start getting that offensive line where it needs to be. What do you think about the right side of the offensive line? And also, they've been rotating Evan Smith in with Caleb Benenoch at right guard. Which I don't like rotating guards. I like one solid offensive line the whole game.
Right. Usually when you're rotating pieces constantly, that means that you don't have a very good offensive line.
Yeah.
So, I think I've never really personally been a believer in Caleb Benenoch. I know he's a young player, but, we need to spend a very early round pick on a guy who is not a high risk, high reward guy. Just a guy that we know is going to be a solid player to kind of just solidify that, that side of the line. We got the pieces, as far as, running back, I know.
We still have Alex Kappa too. We do still have Alex Kappa.
Right. Yeah. Kappa's a guy that's going to be, in there, but with him, it's like, is he going to play guard? Is he going to play tackle?
He's like 6'6", man. He's got to play right tackle, right? That's 6'6". That's a damn tight end.
Yeah. Well, you never know. It depends on, who else we can get in there. DeMar Dotson is kind of just a guy that, over the years has been a guy that we could just he step in for anybody who was injured and did kind of a formidable job. But he had the best year that he had to date last year. But so far he's just been that sixth man that you could put in there and still get a pretty decent play out of. But right. I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him draft an offensive lineman next year. Maybe second round. We need to get a guy early that we know is not a big risk. That's going to be a solid player for us because the receivers, the tight ends. Other than that, I'd like to see us get a running back. Peyton Barber's been doing a pretty good job, but most every team in the NFL is rotating two running backs at least.
Yeah,
some teams are playing three.
Yeah, we haven't even seen Ronald Jones that much except for last game against Chicago, and really he was getting there was 18 carries for 60 yards, 3.3 yards a carry in that Chicago game. But you're down, 28 to 3 at halftime. You're not running the ball at all. And when they were running the ball in the second half with Jameis, I thought Ronald Jones was running more decisive, even though the score was way out of control. And it was basically getting, basically scrimmage at that point.
Right.
But I think we're going to get a heavy dose of Ronald Jones because he is the game changer. He can be the game changer. He's got the home run speed. He's that one cut, take it to the house guy. And we just haven't been able to see it yet. And Peyton Barber is always going to get you 2 or 3 yards, especially when they run power. But our zone running right now is not very good. and it's not playing well at all. I think we need to see
Right,
more
and
Ronald
and
Jones.
to me that has a lot to do with the the
Yeah.
offensive line the past 2 games.
Yep.
Especially that right side with Beninock over there. Just you look at teams that run the zone like the Eagles. When you watch tape of the Eagles, man, their offensive line is just like it's like poetry in motion. It's just fluid. When you see them run a zone offense.
Yeah,
You
Lane
know,
Johnson's one of the most athletic tackles I think I've ever seen.
right. When you got Lane Johnson and Jason Peters, that's not an issue. But and I don't really think that Peyton Barber is really a zone style running back. He's
No,
more of kind of like a
get you the
one
tough
cut
yards.
guy. Get to the hole he's supposed to get to, and power and get forward and get 3-4 yards. He's not breaking any big plays.
Yeah, there's a reason
But
why our longest touchdown run last year was 2 yards.
right. But I'm gonna be honest. I feel like, especially this coming up week, there's not gonna be a whole lot of running the ball on either side. Devontae Freeman's out again for the Falcons, so
Grady
Tevin
Jarrett too,
Coleman's gonna
man.
be
Grady Jarrett's out
yeah.
too now. That interior. If they do want to run, if they do want to find a team to run against, it's going to be this Falcons team though, because Falcons are giving up almost 5 yards a rush, and that's without Grady Jarrett.
I could see him running the ball early, but in my opinion, I feel like there's going to be so many points scored on both sides, and the passing game is going to be so successful, really, for both teams, because the Falcons' passing game is red hot right now. I mean, when you got Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Mohamed Sanu, Matt Ryan is pretty much just scoring at will. Their defense just can't stop anybody. So I mean, the Bucs, our run defense has been solid. Our pass defense has definitely been shaky. Against Chicago.
It's a young secondary, man. It's a really young secondary.
Right. I mean, I'm not talking down on the secondary, but we all knew coming into the year, regardless of who we drafted, it was going to take a little bit of time to kind of, find who are going to be our permanent guys back there, and take time for some guys to develop. Unless we would have drafted Derwin James, and then maybe it'd be a little bit different. But
yes, I will forever bring that up until Vita Vea gets 5 sacks in the seasons and has 30 pressures and has 10 forced fumbles, and he's Defensive Player of the Year.
I mean, I saw. You said you were looking on Twitter the other day and you seen that stat from Football Focus. I saw another one with percentages of rookies that either had percentage of plays where it was either an interception, a pass batted, tackle for loss, or a sack. And Derwin James is number 1.
Yeah, he's getting
plays.
Every defensive stat that you can have in a game. He's pretty much racking them up. They're using him like they were using Jalen Ramsey and LaMarcus Joyner at Florida State, kind of in that hybrid linebacker, star, safety position. You know what I mean? Always on the edge.
Right.
That's what I thought he could be here. And I'm not saying that Mike Smith was going to use him that way, because you just don't know that. But I mean, who knows? They might have just put him in strong safety and kept him, away from the line. Who knows how Mike Smith would handle it, or Hoke, or any of the position coaches. But I still think at the end of the day, we got at least 3 years till we know for sure who's the better player. But yeah, looking at our secondary now is, hindsight is 2020 and everything like that. And then also, in preseason, the young secondary that we had, they were looking good. Brennan Hargraves was looking good. Carlton Davis, MJ Stewart, Justin Evans was shining. In preseason, you always end up falling for that. Like, okay, I know it's preseason, but they're still playing well. And then, you get to the regular season and it's a whole different ball game. They are taking their lumps. And the Bucs are going to be in a lot of shootouts because of it. And I hate to say it, as much crap as I've given Brennan Hargraves, he played really well last year. And the first game against the Saints, he was playing well until he got hurt. So losing him, as much crap as I've given him, is horrible. It's horrible for this team, especially since he's the most experienced. Yeah, he's the most experienced.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he's average defensive back or not. He's the most experienced in this defense, and those young guys need that on the field. And Brent Grimes is 35 years old, and I do think that this is the year that his age is catching up to him.
Oh, yeah, and it's it's a passing league now. with the rule changes and all that. I mean, there's a team, there's a quarterback throwing for 400 yards pretty much every week so far this year. 400 yards. I mean, that's 400 yards. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like every team is like a video game right now. It's like
right.
every
the Texans
team is playing the defense on rookie.
The Texans were supposed to be, top 3 defense in the league this year. They just got Tyrann Mathieu, and with Clowney and J.J. Watt, and Andrew Luck threw for 400 yards against them last week. I mean, with T.Y. Hilton and who knows who else at wide receiver. It's just a bunch of kind of young, no-name guys out there. But that's just the league these days. I mean, so I think I really like Carlton Davis. I think he's going to be a really good player. And those young guys, it's just going to take them a while, and it's just part of the way that the league is. Their teams are going to pass the ball. That's why you got to be able to score. With the rule changes and how you can't hit the quarterback, that's just how it is.
When I watch MJ Stewart, our nickel corner, he is not very quick twitch and athletic. I mean, obviously he's playing the secondary, so he's got to have some athleticism, but he doesn't. He seems to me like he's going to end up playing that free safety role, and Justin Evans is going to slide to strong safety because I don't know, man. He gets caught flat-footed a lot.
Yeah, I'd honestly like to see him. I'd like to see him back there.
Yeah,
I'd like to see him back there at that position. Just because to be honest with you, hopefully
he runs like a linebacker.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and you can kind of say the same about Chris Conte.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're the same player, but if you're gonna have Conte, on which I know Conte's out for the year, but if you're gonna have a guy like that playing that position, then you might as well put the a little bit more athletic guy back there and just let him make some plays.
Right.
Because Conte was just getting roasted, before he put himself on injury reserve from embarrassment after that stiff arm.
Yeah. Did you see his tweet?
Yeah.
Where he said, I hope somebody gets stiff armed tonight.
That's one of those things that's one of those things that you don't ever live down.
Yeah. It's like, this is going to be on SportsCenter. So Atlanta's offense right now. We're talking about the Bucs defense right now, and they're not going to get any favors because Atlanta's offense right now is number 1 in the league at not turning the ball over per drive. The second best team is Kansas City, and the Bucs are 31st right now. That means we're averaging more turnovers per drive than every team in the NFL. No, actually, second worst. Yeah, but that stat has to be just from the last 2 games because.
Right. Well, I think that the stats
snowballing
from the Chicago game really kind of skewed that because we had so many.
Yeah.
And then also with the defensive stats because of everything that happened in that game, that was really just a freaking we hadn't had a game like that all year, and then on both sides it was just absolutely terrible.
That's why I always say that I am a stat guy. I love looking at stats because it paints another picture of what your eyes are seeing. But you can't just throw it out without context. I mean, you could say that they're the worst in the league right now, but that's honestly just because of almost 2 games. I mean, 3 first half picks for Fitzpatrick against the Steelers. I think they had 1 more turnover, and then the forced fumbles and interceptions against the Bears. So I mean, other than that, I think they're going to take care of the ball pretty well. And Jameis was at the podium. And he said, a reporter asked him what he had learned from pretty much sitting back and watching his team play and kind of maturing, away from the team on a suspension. He said, he basically learned that he just got to take what the defense gives him, whether that means checking the ball down or throwing it out of bounds. And I like that he said that, but I don't think that's really his style. Jameis gets kind of, I don't know, especially if they get down 2 scores, that's going to go out the window for him. He's going to feel the pressure to want to make a play, and he might force some balls. But he's also the reason they're going to keep you in the game.
Jameis is like that, he's that gunslinger like Brett Favre type quarterback. He's going to try to make a play regardless of what's going on. I mean, that's how you see him, running back and forth and kind of slinging guys off of him. And, he's kind of like little bit comparable to Ben Roethlisberger as well in that aspect.
Yeah,
But
people slide right
you
off
know,
of them.
he definitely needs to check the ball down more. It would be
Hmm.
great if if he just didn't just shut it down completely and check down every time. But I would like to see him do that more, throw the ball away a little bit more. And I think that's been one of the knocks on him. The past 2 years is he's just trying to make a play and he's just chunk the ball up into double coverage.
Well, we have such a vertical offense, whether it's Todd Monken or Dirk Cutter calling the plays. We have such a vertical offense that it's all these long developing routes, and you need the protection to complete those passes. But also, you got to think two of the best quarterbacks of all time, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, whoever you want to call it. I want to say a lot of their yardage has come from these little dump off passes, running backs doing the little out and in, getting the matchup against a linebacker. Like sometimes the check down is the best play. And I still think that he hasn't learned that. But I never want to take away his gunslinger mentality because that would make him a quarterback that he's not. And for the people saying, okay, he needs to prove it this year, or else the Bucs are going to move on, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, Matthew Stafford's a turnover machine, and he's gotten 2 contracts, right? Or 1. Either way, he got paid. So
he got paid.
Yeah, so come on. I mean,
like he was the highest paid quarterback in the league.
You're already ready to move on from the best thing that we've had. Even if Jameis Winston has 2 turnovers a game, is he really the one that's honestly losing the game for you? I mean, if you go back, this is why I don't like talking to uneducated fans, people that don't watch the game. You go back and watch the games where he put them in the position to take a lead or get the lead, and the defense squander it away. And a lot of the times they're playing from behind. That's fine, but if you bring them back and the defense loses, it's like the quarterback gets none of the credit, all the credit, all the blame, everything like that. It's just ridiculous to me. People thinking, oh yeah, well, if they go, let's just say 9-7, Jameis is gone. No. That's
I think
asinine.
Absolutely worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, Jameis gets franchise tagged, and
Yeah.
that's if they have a losing record, even if Dirk Cutter gets fired, I don't feel like ownership is ready to just give up on Jameis Winston, regardless of what happens.
How can
unless he gets in trouble, some type of legal trouble.
Yeah, definitely.
As long as he stays out of trouble, he'll be there at least one more year.
Yep.
Maybe they don't give him the big contract this year if he doesn't have a good rest of the year, but he'll at least be there for one more year.
Well, you know what scares them? I think that what scares them the most is they know how Jameis is in the community now and how he's been the past couple of years and everything like that. I think what scares ownership that could be in the back of their mind is it's not what Jameis is going to do now. It's something that could come up from years past. I mean, his suspension now was from 2016 incident. So, I mean, that's got to be in the back of their head. It's like, okay, we're going to pay you for what you've done now, but how do we know something else isn't going to pop up? I mean, that's just a realistic way to look at it. But as far as the quarterback play goes, I don't see how you move on from him. That's no way.
Yeah, no. And despite all the hypothetics, I really feel like Jameis is going to come in here and have a good year.
I do too.
I think that it was good for him, as bad as it was with, the suspension and all that. It was good for him to kind of be able to step back and take some time away and just kind of evaluate his game. And like you said, work on some of his, flaws, in his game. And we didn't really get a true look at him last week. I mean, he's coming in down, 28.
Yeah, one of the interceptions was a Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack got his hand on the ball.
Right, so. and obviously Chicago knows they're going to throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's just kind of, he's stepping back there, and Chicago's dropping back into cover 4 or whatever, and they know they're going to throw the ball. Obviously, they're down by 28, 35, 42. It's not getting any better. So they're not going to turn around and hand it off to Peyton Barber, and the defense knows that. So, I think I'm going to predict right now that this Sunday, Jameis Winston is going to throw for over 350 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Oh, he's going to be a fantasy dream. And I have him. I picked him up actually. I have him on my bench because I have Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers, and now I have Jameis. I went ahead and picked Jameis up because I knew that he's going to be a stat machine, but also I picked him up because Aaron Rodgers, I don't know how much longer he can keep playing on one leg. So I think
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to take Jared Goff out because he's just playing lights out right now. But maybe when Jared Goff's on a bye week, I might throw Winston in there and see what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, with Goff, it's like he's playing great, but some weeks Gurley's just going to score 3-4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And he might score 4 touchdowns. He might score 3 of them rushing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They might get down to the 1 and just get down inside the 5 and just hand it to Gurley. Goff might have had a great game, but Gurley's.
Well, yeah, and also the thing is having Jared Goff. Yeah, to your point, that is correct. Gurley's going to take over some weeks, but having Goff, Gurley's a big part of the passing game, and sometimes he gets me a lot of points just from passing it to Gurley. So it's a win-win for me.
Yeah, for sure. I have Gurley on one team and Goff on a different team. So, Gurley, I think last week he had like 30. He didn't have much rushing yards at all, but he had 3 touchdowns from like 2 receiving and 1 rushing. So it's like, Gurley's going to get his regardless. But that offense is just potent everywhere.
Oh, I know. Well, it's just a schematic. It's just a schematic of it. And just one more little fantasy football note here. Impatience is gonna kill you in this because I had drafted Calvin Ridley, and I think it was like after a couple weeks I was like, man, he's not doing nothing. So I released him or traded him, I think. And then, boom, he goes off for 3 touchdowns, and he's been their leading touchdown guy on the Falcons. And I'm just sitting here watching him ball out on somebody else's fantasy team that's in my league. Yeah.
I'm going through that struggle right now. I mean, it probably won't be to that extent, but I drafted Aaron Jones from Green Bay, knowing he was suspended for the first 4 weeks.
Bold.
Actually,
that's pretty bold.
Him and Ingram. I mean, he was like my last pick, but him and Mark Ingram. And I've just been sitting on both of them, and then Ingram finally came back. I knew he was gonna do something, but I'm still hanging on to Aaron Jones, holding on to some hope, hoping he'll take a hold of that backfield. And I almost dropped him last week to pick up somebody else. So I'm like, let me just be patient and hold on to him for 2 more weeks and just see what happens. But patience is the key.
Yeah. Like I said, impatience will get you killed in fantasy football. So I want to start talking a little bit more about the Falcons game, but I do want to talk about one thing that Mike Smith said from the Chicago game, because it was one of those things where you hear a coach say something and you just kind of think to yourself like, what? Why would you say that? What does that mean? So he said the players didn't respond well to my coaching in Chicago. Like what does that mean? Like they didn't understand your concepts. Like they just didn't listen. Like I don't understand why he would say that.
It's basically the old it's not me, it's you.
Mm-hmm. That's what it sounded like to
trying
me.
to blame it on the players.
Right.
Trying to blame it on the players, which, being a coach myself, I can see that side of it. But at the same time,
it would have been funny if he was like, well, I didn't miss the tackle.
At the same time, you could see there were some obvious issues, in the scheme. Sometimes it's hard to tell whether it was, I know there was some broken coverages early in the game where guys just running wide open.
Oh, wheel route.
This has been something that's been kind of somewhat consistent, with Mike Smith. And, when it gets to a certain point where you're just kind of like, well, how long can you really blame the players? How long can you really just blame the players over and over and over again when now you got different guys in there and you're getting the same result before you just say, okay, well, it's time to move on.
Dude, I would love to see like a Wade Phillips come in here, because I mean, I don't know. You can't really say it's the coaching or the players, because really you're not there. You don't know what communication problems they're having. You don't know if they're just coaching them and they're just maybe the verbiage is too hard. I don't know. But it is funny to me how you see all over the league that some teams will have those, let's just say they'll have a coaching change, staff turnover, but the roster stays the same. And then all of a sudden the defense is balling out and it's just a different coach in there. It's like, I I want to see like what would happen if maybe Wade Phillips or somebody came. They have a real simple defense, probably run the same two coverages all game. But if you're really, really good at those two coverages and you know the ins and outs and what can beat you here, what can beat you there, then why not go that route? Sometimes the most simple way is the best way. I mean, what did the old Bucks do? The old Bucks, they said they played the Tampa 2 and maybe one of the coverage, but they played it so well that it was basically like they're just doing basic addition and subtraction, and everyone else is doing trigonometry. It's just easy for them.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the comment you made about one coach leaves and then another coach comes in with the same players, and all of a sudden they start producing. Kind of like when Mike Smith got fired from Atlanta and Dan Quinn came in there, and all of a sudden, whoa, this is a good defense.
Oh, nice transition there, my friend. I like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a reason why Mike Smith isn't coaching in Atlanta anymore. Let's just say that. So, I'm not huge on firing coaches in the middle of the season. Maybe you wait it out and see, once you're out of the play, if you get to a point of the season where you're officially out of the playoff picture, I think it might just be time to go ahead and just.
What do you think about him? What do you think about him getting out of the press box and getting down on the field, being a defensive coordinator? Maybe be more on the pulse of the players. Talk to them more on the sideline instead of through a headset. I mean, is that kind of an overrated thing?
He's saying that the players aren't responding to his coaching. I mean, I don't know how much more that would help. I mean, to be honest, if you're a defensive coordinator, to me, it would help you to be able to see the whole field.
Right.
If you're down the field, you can communicate with the players more, but you can't really see everything that's going on, and especially on an NFL field. In my mind, I mean, some coaches are different. It's a personal preference. It's hard for me to say because some coaches prefer to be up in the box, some coaches prefer to be down on the field. Me as a coordinator, offensive or defensive, I feel like I would prefer to be up in the box so that I can see the whole field and see everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And just have my assistants, I communicate to my assistants what I want them to tell my players through the headset.
Right, delegate.
And communicate that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It was just a thought.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it's a personal preference because there's some guys that do one, some guys that do the other, and there's good and bad, coaches that have done both. So, we'll see. This week I'm not expecting a great performance out of the defense, honestly.
No.
But hopefully we can get a couple takeaways.
We have to win a shootout. Yeah.
But I'm just hoping that we can get a little bit of a pass rush on Matt Ryan this week and force a couple turnovers.
Vita Vea and Bo Allen are both back. Vita Vea is going for a second week straight, and Bo Allen's finally getting back into the mix. So, I think against Atlanta's O-line, they can still produce, they can still eat, and they don't always have to necessarily get a sack. But you got to get Matt Ryan off his mark because the only way you're going to win this shootout is if you get Matt Ryan uncomfortable. That's it.
Right.
You got to heat up Matty Ice. So
I definitely agree. Definitely gonna have to get some pressure, especially with a young secondary. You have to get pressure up front on the quarterback. That's really the only way. If he's allowed, and that's the one thing is it doesn't matter really who you have in the secondary.
No.
If the quarterback's able to sit back there all day without being pressured, he's gonna find a guy open. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, there's pressure interceptions and there's coverage sacks. They go hand in hand. So I was on ESPN, just doing a little game preview. And I think the Bucs have a good chance to win the game. I mean, I'd say the defenses are probably about playing to see who sucks the worst, but the offenses are fine. ESPN Match Predictor gives the Falcons a 65% chance to win the game. Even with the Bucs on their 2-week bye, getting healthier, one of the best offenses in the league, and and then the Falcons are missing all these key starters. They're giving them a 65% chance to win. I thought that was kind of a little high.
I think everybody's in love with Atlanta's offense right now, and I mean I can see that with Ridley coming on strong and really just the numbers they've been putting up the past couple weeks. But they really haven't played very good defenses, to be honest with you. I mean,
Nope.
Pittsburgh, they played Pittsburgh last week, scored a lot of points, but Pittsburgh has been giving up a lot of points through the air this year. They played New Orleans, who's another team that's given up a lot of points through the air this year. They played Cincinnati, who's kind of like, they're hit or miss.
Mm-hmm.
They played Carolina, which Carolina, I don't know. It's hard for me to figure out Carolina right now. But, since Ridley's come on, it's just like, wow, with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, and then Sanu had a big game, last week, before last.
Well, every time a player in this league, it doesn't matter which season, which coaching staff, which team this Bucs is made up of. When a player is having a drought, let's just say maybe it's a quarterback or it's a rookie quarterback or it's a wide receiver is not getting his yardage as normal, enter Bucs defense, and they seem to always ball out. So as much as Julio Jones is not getting his targets, and that's honestly a good problem to have because if you're throwing all these yards and touchdowns at Calvin Ridley and you haven't even gotten any production out of Julio yet, expect him to blow up versus the Bucs.
Julio Jones always balls out against the Bucs.
Oh,
regardless.
Yeah. It's like a tradition.
You can expect him.
It would be a miracle if he didn't.
You can expect him to have 100-plus yards receiving Sunday, without a doubt.
Yeah, Mohamed Sanu's probably going to throw Julio Jones 2 touchdowns.
It wouldn't surprise me much. Much. But overall, here's my prediction for the game. I say Winston throws for 384 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Bucs win 41-38.
I'm writing this down right now. Bucs 41-38.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I'm gonna play the Debbie Downer here. I'm saying Atlanta wins this game. I hope I'm wrong. I'm gonna say Atlanta wins 34-28.
I can see that.
People are gonna call me people are gonna say, "What the hell are you doing?" But that's fine. Well, even if Devontae Freeman is out, Tevin Coleman and Ito Smith, it's not really a drop off. They're still 2 really, really good players. But the only difference is they're going against a really, really, really good run defense that the Bucs have. So even with Devontae out, I'm still pretty optimistic that we can hold them and make Matt Ryan have to throw. So I think that's going to do it for our little Atlanta preview. It was nice to talk some Bucs football with you. Past games, this game. It's about time to go watch some college football, man.
Yes, sir. I'm about to head in here right now and get it going, and that's pretty much going to be my spot for the rest of the day. Is in front of the TV watching some.
Yes.
College
I can taste
football.
I can taste the chicken wings and the beer right now.
I'm going to go ahead and put it out here now. Spoiler alert for any of you fans out there. Miami at Virginia tonight. Virginia is going to give them hell. They might win.
Are you going with the upset of Miami?
I'm going to say Virginia is at least going to cover the 7-point spread. I don't know if they're going to win outright, but they're going to cover the 7-point spread at Virginia at night, coming off of an emotional rivalry game.
My upset pick is Pitt over Notre Dame.
I would love that.
I'm going for it.
I can't stand Notre Dame, so I'd love that.
Yeah. Get a real conference, Notre Dame.
Right. Stop acting like you're too good.
Yeah. It's like we're going
to be a partial member of the ACC, so we're not really, but we're just going to play some of your crappy teams.
We don't want to play none of you dirty teams in the South every year. We don't want to be part of the ACC. It's a basketball. That's a basketball conference. You're too good. They got their nose stuck up. And if Lou Holtz was here, he'd pick them to win the championship every single year, no matter who's playing. So, well, man, it was nice talking some football with you. It's time to go watch some college football, and hopefully it's a good day.
For sure, I'll get up with you next week.
All right, buddy.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Take it easy.